Good morning. This is November the 13th, Wednesday, 2024. We are in BBIS first year compulsory English class. And I guess this should be the first class after TR and chart vacations. So I'll give you 20-second time to look into your notes. Then you will tell me what ideas I was discussing in the previous class, and you will guide me which section, which paragraph was I explaining in my previous class. In 20 seconds, check your notes and then find out exactly what idea we were discussing, which section, which paragraph we were discussing, and then tell me. Can you tell me where we were in the previous class?
We were discussing section 3.
Show me in the text the paragraph or section we were discussing. Okay. Keep looking. I'll come back to you and you will tell me. Can someone tell me exactly which paragraph, which sentence I was reading when I left the class? He was not the only free-born Western boy I loved. We had done this section, right? Had we completed the first section? Check your notes. Make a habit. When the teacher finishes the class, in your text, with a marker, mark where he taught. Okay? Which text did you show me? He was not the only free-born Western boy, okay? This is section 1. And it was here. I guess I can find out. Okay. As you tell me, we were somewhere here, right? So we were reading, when we grow, there is something called in psychology as formative years. People say that formative years are between 13 and late teen, 20, let's say, or 13, early teens. In the formative years, you formulate your understanding of the world, your ideology. And one thing that happens is that, I don't know much about psychology, you have idols to follow. When I was like you studying in class 6, I was 12 or 13, I had one course named Our Ancestors. And in that course, there were lessons about big achievements of our ancestors. So as our teachers taught us those lessons about those personalities, I, a 12-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy, always dreamt to be like them. They were dead. They were very ancient people. But I felt when I grow, I should be like them. So they were my idols. I did not have television. I did not have internet back then. The only thing I had a radio, right? So my idols came from my course books. That may not be the case with you, because today you have internet, you have mobile phone, smartphone, you browse, and you know a lot of things about the world. We could not, right? Here what you see is this teenager. She has a tennis player as her idol. Right? The Swedish tennis star. I had inserted an image. Oh, it's not. But it should be. I don't know why. Okay, leave that. And we were reading how she was imitating this star. Because I'm using it for the... Okay, let me see if I can... Okay. So she says, at the tennis court, I copied him. Outside the court, I read articles about him. Somebody had asked me, maybe, I forgot, why did she worry about this guy? Then I told that maybe secretly, silently, she was in love with him. Right? I would clip pictures of Bollywood actresses and put them inside my books and bring them to classroom. And when my teacher was boring, I would open the book pretending I was paying attention to the lesson. And actually, I would be watching these girls' photographs because the girls were more attractive than the teacher's class. This happens. This happens to us when at an age, right? Something similar is happening here. See, then we also read how she wrote a letter to him and he responded with his signature and photograph, right? Then this phrase, he was not only the free-born Western boy. This idea, you pay attention. He was not only the free-born Western boy. This idea of freedom, you should understand, is at the heart of this essay. One thing that this teenager is looking in life is freedom. This teenager, this narrator, is looking for freedom in life. And what may be the meaning of freedom for her? Have you done attendance? I think the meaning of freedom for her maybe is you should be able to take your life decisions yourself. Now, this is a very controversial idea in our culture, because in our culture, our parents take many decisions about us. But understand that she was raised in the Western culture, right? What is the most important thing about Western culture to understand? Western cultures are individualistic. What do I mean by that? In Western culture, the individual is more important than the family or society. That's why you will see that Western people, whether they are players or athletes or adventurers, they are always after making world record. There will be one guy and he will do something that nobody can do to outstand, right? So Western people have this idea that I am the most important fellow, not my family, my parents, no, not society, no. For them, the connections are less important. The individual identity is most important. This is what is happening here. Because when she sees the star tennis player, she understands that this tennis player is financially independent because he's earning money. He's a star and he can take his own decisions. So she wants to be like him. Many of you today have the same desire because you are living in this modern world with internet access and all that. Okay. Then I also loved Rod Stewart. Look, when you are a teenager, I told you last time that I fell in love with more than 10 girls. But now I realize that was not actually love. Now I understand. What was it? It was a kind of infatuation. I was young. It was a kind of bodily attraction that died soon. It was not a true love. This happens to many of us. She says, I also loved Rod Stewart, the British singer. My love for Rod Stewart was more exuberant and joyful though, and this was apt as I had found out a bit late what sex was. I was sexually active when I was 14. I'm on camera. People might watch me, right? I knew about sex when I was 13, 14. I bought a book, read. We boys talked dirty and knew a lot of vocabulary about sexual things, slangs, right? Maybe many of you came to learn more about sex when you were 13, 14, or may not be, right? What I appreciate here is, what I like in this memoir is, look how frankly the narrator writes. In writing, there is a quality that makes you a good writer. Ask a question. What makes one a good writer? One answer would be honesty in writing. What does honesty in writing mean? It means write true things. Do not fake. Do not tell lies to your readers. And look, maybe her father might have read this essay. Maybe many people might have read whom she would feel difficult to face after this publishing this essay. Mother, sister, brother. But look how frankly she says, I had found out a bit late what sex was. Can you write your diaries where you describe your sexual encounters? Can you write diaries where you describe your sexual mischievous actions you do? Because I'm pretty sure that when we reach 13, 14, 15, we are involved in sex one way or another. Though our parents may be aware or unaware, but we pretend they don't know, but they know. And they pretend they don't know. Move ahead. Through my baffled romance, see the adjective, baffled. What is baffling? You are baffled when you don't clearly understand what you are involved in. You are doing something, but you clearly don't understand what is it you are involved in. So look, baffled romance. You read earlier how when that boy, Nepali boy, kissed her, she didn't enjoy that kiss. Right? Baffled romance. I had no understanding of what sex was. Look, I had found out about sex because I was kissed by a boy. Maybe in this memoir, she has not written many things from her life. Let's assume. But I had no understanding what sex was. This is a very, very difficult sentence to understand. What do you mean by understanding what sex is? It's a big question. Because sex is mental, sex is physical, sex is social, sex is spiritual. And I don't understand what it exactly means. One meaning may be, when you were 13, 14, if somebody kisses you, somebody hugs you, somebody molests you, somebody pummels your body, or if you have sex with somebody, physical relation you have, the bodies come together, but you don't have full understanding of what is happening. And this is not a good thing. This is not a good thing. Because if you're physically involved in activity, you should know what you're doing. If you're doing something and you don't understand exactly what you're doing, this is a dangerous thing. This may harm you. This may harm you. Right? When I did find out, I was horrified. Why? There was a girl, I don't know if I may fall in problem recording this thing. There was a child. She used to supply milk to our home. One day, out of a casual conversation, we learned that that child was being sexually molested by her uncle. The uncle molesting her was 21, the child being molested was 9. And if I tell you the stories the child told us, you will be horrified. That 21-year-old uncle used to show pornography to this 9-year-old child on his computer. And that 21-year uncle used to persuade this 9-year-old child to do what the pornography was doing. And that child was so innocent that she did everything the uncle said. She was 100% involved in sex with that 21-year-old uncle. But she didn't understand what she was doing. And she would come to our home delivering milk. And with my wife, and my wife persuaded her to tell the story, she will completely tell everything he did. Because she didn't understand what he was doing. One thing she said that, to my shock and surprise, when she asked, "Did you like it?" She said she had mixed feelings. Today, that child has grown into a 20-year-old girl. And sometimes we come across her in the street because we share the same neighborhood. And you know what happens when we see her? She's so embarrassed, she even has no courage to face us. Because now she understands what her uncle had done her when she was 21, when she was 9, and he was 21. Today she is 20 and he is about 40. They still live in the same house. Still. And I sometimes imagine how is she surviving. I told you this story to make you understand this line. Horrified, horrified, horrified. Why would someone be horrified of sexual experience? Because we assume that sex is pleasant. She was horrified because maybe the sexual encounter she had, she was not prepared for those encounters. And now as she remembers, she's horrified. I was sexually molested when I was barely 4 or 5 years old boy in India. Can you imagine? I was molested. Right? Many of you might have had similar experience or might not have had. What I appreciate about this memoir is the honest writing. The writer is really praiseworthy because she is honestly telling. And I told you, honesty is a very good quality that makes you a great writer. Who is a mediocre writer? One who hides truth. Move ahead. And yet by the time I fell in love with Rod Stewart, see, by the time I fell in love, there is great difference between sex and love. Understand this. Here she says, here she talks about sex. Here she is about sex, which is horrified, horrified. Here it's about love. Many times, many people first have sex, but they are not in love. This is horrible. When you are involved in sex without being in love, that can be horrified, horrified, horrified kind of thing. Right? Yet by the time I fell in love with Rod Stewart, look, when she fell in love with this athlete, I guess, again, what kind of love this is? This is not a physical love because she is not going to sleep with him. She is not going to share the body with him. But she appreciates that star and loves him. What kind of love this is? Ask yourself an answer. I had come around to being intrigued by boys again. Now she says that I was again being intrigued by boys. What is intriguing? What do you mean by when you say you are intrigued by boys? You are attracted by boys. I had stopped dressing like a lumberjack. You know, earlier, do you remember what she said earlier? She said that I did not want to look like a girl, she said earlier. Do you remember? In the previous section she said. So I put on lumberjack dress to look like a boy with a hoodie. And had begun to experiment cautiously with being a girl again. Now, when I read this line, experimenting with being a girl again, I don't understand what's his meaning. What do you mean when a teenager says, I am experimenting at being a girl? Do you mean she was surveying her body? Do you mean she was being aware about her sexuality? Do you mean she was pleasing herself? Do you mean she was masturbating? I don't understand. I don't know. But I'm curious to know this line. How was she experimenting being a girl again? What does it mean to experiment yourself? I don't know. and I had found it enjoyable. Now I ask a question here. What does this narrator mean that experimenting with her girlhood was enjoyable? And one thought comes, maybe she was watching pornography, maybe she was reading sexual books, maybe she was masturbating, maybe she was pleasing herself. But I'm not sure. I don't clearly understand these lines. You think. This is what reading is. Reading is not trying to get facts. Reading is imagining as you read. Who is a good reader? A good reader is one who imagines as he or she reads. Why? Because writers use imagination to write. Because writers use imagination to write, we readers should approach a text with a similar imagination. If you approach a text with a dry heart, no imagination, you won't enjoy the text. Move ahead. Rod Stewart, yes, my young heart beat free tonight. Yes, time was on my side. No, I wasn't going to let them get me down, as he sang. Singer, I wasn't going to let them push me around. Now, I don't understand who them refers to. I don't understand who them refers to here, because nowhere she tells clearly. And it is not necessary that when you read something, you should understand 100%. No, it's not possible. There are many things which are not easily understood. Push me around. I wasn't, maybe sometimes I feel like, is she talking about her classmates? Is she talking about other young boys she met? Is she talking about her friends? I don't know. I was not going to let them ever change my point of view. Mark this word, and I'll explain why, what is important. We got the word what is point of view? I will say this word is cultural point of view or ideological point of view. Point of view is, as you grow, you develop a certain outlook about the world and society. I'm pretty sure this boy and this boy can't be same. Why? Because they must have grown in two different families, two different cultures. So if these two boys look at the world, they will have two opinions. Both are right. The two opinions may be opposite to each other. You can't say he's right, he's wrong. No, they both are right. But then ask a question. They are opposite. How can they be both right, sir? My answer is, he is right because he thinks that way from his viewpoint. He is too right because he thinks it from his viewpoint. If I stand here and describe you, I will talk more about your faces, because that's what I'm seeing. And if he describes you people, he will describe your backs. We both are correct, because our viewpoints are different. Right now, I gave you example of physical location as a viewpoint. But here I don't mean physical location. Here I mean cultural location. Look my Shikha. I'm a son of a Brahmin. My father is a philosopher, professor, Pandit, very traditional guy. I'm his son. So I carry Brahmin's cultural viewpoint. This is what I mean by viewpoint. Your outlook about the world, which is gradually shaped over time by your life experiences. When she says, I was horrified about sex, she has a very critical viewpoint about sex at that point in the lesson. Why? Because she has had, I guess, negative experiences with sex. Our viewpoint is shaped by our life experience. Did you get my point? Move ahead. I followed Rod Stewart out of my half Nepali, half American life. Now mark this and note down here. This is very important point we are coming at. What is this half Nepali, half American life? This essay, as I have been telling you, is about identity. This essay is about identity crisis. मुझे ठीक यही होता है जो उसको हो रहा है यहां. जैसे वो पूछ रही है कि मैं हाफ नेपाली थी, हाफ अमेरिकन थी, मुझे लगता है कि मैं हाफ नेपाली हूं और हाफ इंडियन हूं. मैं यहां पैदा नहीं हुआ, मैं तो भारत में पैदा हुआ, इटावा में पैदा हुआ, वहीं पला बड़ा. साल में एक बार मेरे माता पिता मुझको यहाँ लेके आते थे, करीब 20 दिन रखते थे गांव में. मुझे अच्छा लगता था पहाड़ों में, फिर मैं वापस चला जाता था. तो मैंने नेपाली कहाँ सीखी? घर में माँ बाप से बोल के सीखी. और हिंदी कहाँ सीखी? मित्रों से बोल के सीखी, स्कूल में बोल के सीखी. भोजपुरी कहाँ सीखी? खेलने वाले साथियों से बोल के सीखी. तो आज लगता है कि मैं कौन हूँ. कभी मन करता है चला जाऊँ इंडिया, बना लो एक आधार कार्ड. बनवाया नहीं है, मन करता है ये नागरिकता फाड़ के फेंक दूं और क्या बना लूं? आधार कार्ड. फिर सोचता हूं मैं वहां पैदा हुआ ठीक है, लेकिन मेरे माँ बाप तो यहां पैदा हुए थे. तो ये चलता रहता है मेरे अंदर कि मैं कौन हूं, मैं इधर का हूं कि उधर का हूं. और कभी लगता है मैं पता नहीं किधर का हूं. मैं पूछता हूं मैं कौन हूं, इधर का हूं कि उधर का हूं. मेरे सभी साथी उधर हैं, इधर कोई भी नहीं है. कभी लगता है ना मैं इधर का हूं ना मैं उधर का हूं. दैट इज कॉल्ड ambivalent identity. That is called ambivalent identity. And this is the issue in the essay. The narrator has ambivalent identity. Sometimes he says, I'm American. Sometimes he says, I'm Nepali. Sometimes he says, I'm neither of them. Sometimes he might say, I'm both of them. Very unstable identity. Right? Identity is how you view yourself. And identity crisis is the feeling of instability, the feeling of uncomfort, when you ask yourself who I am. And I told you this is an important point in the essay. I followed, half American life into the world. And there the influences of school took over. Look, when you are, I told you, I talked about formative years. In our life, if you ask me, I'm 56, and you ask me, Divakar sir, which period in your life has had most influence? I will say the period from class 6 to 12. When I was at the Cooperative Inter-College BBIS Gorakhpur. When I joined class 6, I was maybe 11 or 12. When I left, I was 19. So the time between 12 to 19 is most important part in my life, because all my outlook was shaped at that time. My school has had the most powerful impact on me. Nothing in my life has had as strong influence as my school. My teachers, my classmates, right? By the time I was 16, I was sneaking behind my parents' back with my first American boyfriend. This is what I did. I told you, the first time I felt I liked a girl was in class 2. The second time I really liked a girl was in class 7. The third time I felt deeply with a girl in love was in class 9. The fourth time I felt I liked a girl was class 12. It was actually, she liked me, she proposed me. The fifth time I fell in love with a girl was at the university. The sixth time or seventh time I fell in love was here in Nepal at Kirtipur. Then I got married. And even after I got married, one girl proposed me and put me in a big trouble. This happens. This is a normal thing. This is a pretty normal thing. And we should know how to manage it. We should know how to manage it. If we can manage, life is fine. If you can't, life is critical. Move ahead. I was an artist. She told you earlier, because I wanted to get freedom, then so I thought, where can I get freedom? She said, freedom is in art. Because art is creation, creativity. I was free. Why? I was artist. There was no bridge back that I did not set out to burn. Look this sentence. See this sentence. There was no, very powerful sentence. There was no bridge back that I did not set out to burn. At 16, she says, I will never remember life before 16. That's dead. I'll forget. That means now she was free, a free girl, and she didn't want to go back to the previous identity, the ambivalent identity. But I was done with being Nepali. When I was reading this essay for the first time, I hated this writer. I shouted at her in my room while reading. I silently abused her. I said. Because I could not tolerate this sentence. I was done with being Nepali because I am proud of being Nepali. I have seen her here in Kathmandu. A year ago I saw her here in a program. I wanted to meet her and remind her this line. But now I understand. What do I understand? This is a memoir. And she is telling how she felt at that time. How she felt at that time. Done. See the word. Single word paragraph. One word paragraph. Done. Look, writing. Why is she creating a paragraph with one word? Because she is putting this idea forcefully, with power. Now we move to the next section. It was the late 1980s. This was where I was teaching last time. You dragged me back. Now I remember. I had done the previous section. You made me repeat so many things. I was in art school in Providence, Rhode Island, and given to dressing in all black dresses and combat boots from the Salvation Army. Look, she was putting on army kind of dress. This happens with us also. When we are young, we like to, actually, when we are 16, the most important thing that happens to us is we are very conscious about our identity. When I was 14, 15, Fair and Lovely came to market for the first time. Its price was 2 rupees, I guess. And I would buy and use it a lot. Why? I thought I should look fair, attractive. Why? Because I was very conscious about my appearance. I'd buy gel. hair gel. And in the whole class, my hairstyle was different. While buying sweaters, I'll choose the design unique. Why? I told you, at 14, 15, my most important worry was, how do I look? I was attention seeker. You are attention seeker. We are at this age. I would do so many things so that people look at me. Right? The same is happening here. I did not keep in touch with Nepalese in America. Oh God, such a difficult sentence to read. I did not keep in touch with Nepalese in America and in fact avoided them. I felt constrained by the presence of other Nepalese. This is a very difficult sentence to read. It never happened to me. It never happened to me. I never felt constrained with Nepalese. No. When I was reading this line, I was very, very uncomfortable. Difficult to read. It was bad enough that I had to visit home. Look, she puts the word home. See, I'll teach you one thing here. Here's a word. If you write home like this, it means a general meaning. But when you mark like this is called mark out. In writing, we call this mark out. And when you put a word within single inverted comma, not double, single, it means you are putting a very special meaning in the word. And often not always, that meaning is opposite to normal meaning. That is ironical. So I guess she means that the home was not a home for her. That's the meaning. The home was not a home for her. She felt very difficult to be there. Visit home every summer doing darshan. Look, she didn't like this idea, doing darshan. You know, Chetris, Thakuris, Thapas, they would do darshan. When they meet seniors, they would bow down and they will put their head on here. We Brahmins, we touch the feet. We don't do darshan. Brahmins don't do darshan. Chetris do darshan. Thakuris do darshan. Right? To hundreds and hundreds of relatives looking askance at local customs. Look, when she came to Damauli, Nepal, and she saw local customs, she felt strange. And confirming the essential lack of freedom in Nepal, she felt that Nepalese girls, Nepalese boys, Nepalese people don't have freedom. As I was reading this line, I was angry with this author. And I was reading this line and I was talking to her. And I said, no, Manjushri, you are wrong. Nepalese people also enjoy freedom following their culture. You know what is happening here? All this is happening because of cultural mixture. I'll use the word mixture. I don't get another word. There are two cultures in her, and that is creating a problem. Right? Before rushing off to where my parents now lived, Sri Lanka and the Philippines, to restore my spirit. Look, in Nepal, she says her spirit was broken. Her spirit, she felt comfortable only when she left Nepal. In the neither local nor foreign expatriate limbo that I had grown accustomed to, neither local nor foreign expatriate. In Providence, it was easy enough to avoid Nepalese as there were none around. Oh God. Actually, in this whole essay, the most difficult time for me was reading these lines. The most difficult time. And if I had met the author in front of me, I'll badly scold her. Sometimes I felt like slapping her. I'm on the record. As a reader, as I read these lines, I was so angry, I thought if I found her, I'll slap her for writing such things about being Nepali. But I understand. What do you understand? This is all the result of cultural clash inside her. Two cultures are clashing, right? Okay. But at the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, one day I entered a room full of Hindu statues to see an elderly couple admiring the art. The man was wearing a Dhaka topi. The woman was wearing a Nevari teen tah khasto. It should be italicized. I don't know. Maybe it's my fault. I don't know. It should be italicized. It's a Nepali word, Nepali term. Teen tah khasto. A 20-something man, their son was showing them around. And look what happens. Up here is fine, comfortable. Now look, the problem is here. Yes. Nepalese. Again, she puts a single word paragraph. This is remarkable. Look, she spends one paragraph with one word Nepalese because that identity, the Nepali identity, has become a very serious problem for her. She is feeling inferior to be called Nepali. I had such experience once in my life, I'll share here. I was in class 9 in India. I had a biology teacher. His name was Gajendra Bahadur Singh. He was a good teacher. And because we were not very rich, we were poor. So when winters came, we could not afford a lot of sweaters. So what we do, I had 5, 6, 7 shirts. So I will put on 5, 6, 7 shirts, one over another. And I will tuck all the collars inwards. And I will tuck the last collar outward to hide the shirts inside. I don't know how that teacher found out that I'm wearing 7, 8 shirts. One day, I was over there, he was here, and looked at me. You know what he said? Bahadur? At first I got confused. Whom is he calling? He pointed with the finger. Tumko bula rao idhar aao. I had goosebumps because I don't know why he's calling me Bahadur. Though I had seen Bollywood movies, Bahadur, who is called, I had seen. Bahadur was a very derogatory term. I walked up. He held me by the collar. He made my face face the class. And he said, Ladko, tumko pata hai, ye pahadon se aata hai. When he said this, I felt humiliated because he was singling me out in the class and he was pointing me out in the class. He was insulting me. Then he said, देखो, इसके यहाँ बहुत ठंडी होती है और देखो ये कितने शर्ट पहन रखा है. And he began to untuck my collar. 1, 2, 3, and I felt like he had made me naked in the class. At that feeling that I'm without a cloth in the class. When she says this word, I understand this sentence because I have had similar feeling. Because at that moment, when he did that to me, calling me Bahadur, I felt humiliated. I felt injured mentally, psychologically. I began to cry. It was a class before break. In break, I went home crying. For 5, 6 days, I won't go to college. Then finally, I told my father all the story. Then my father came to college, taking me, holding me by the hands. The principal came, the teacher came, I came, my father came. We had a discussion. He didn't say sorry, but then I felt a bit comfortable. And I started coming back again. I told you my story to make you understand. The point here is that this narrator, in my understanding, is not comfortable with that Nepali identity. She feels very inferior if she has to say, I'm a Nepali. And as I read this line, I'm very angry with her. But at the same time, I also understand the situation. I'm so angry, I want to slap her. But I also understand why she's saying like that. Because I have had similar experience myself. Lest I be recognized as a compatriot, I hurried on to the next room. Look, she does not want to be recognized as a Nepali living in a foreign country. She is very uncomfortable when someone says, you are Nepali. In India, I was in school and sometimes my friends will say, "Hey bhaiya," if they are younger than me. हाँ बोला ना, तो रहुआ घर कहाँ बाटे? Then I'll say, कहाँ है? तो बताओ ना. Then I'll say, नेपाल से. नेपाल से? हाँ कहाँ है? And they look on my face. लौकत तो नहीं खाओ ऐसन. You don't look, meaning you don't look like Nepali. Then I say, कहाँ है? कहाँ हो गए? तो तुआर आँखियाँ तो बड़ा बढ़हन बढ़हन बाट. Your eyes are too big. Then I'll say, why? कहाँ है? कहाँ हो गए? तो पहाड़ी के आँखियाँ कहाँ बढ़हन वाला? वो छोट छोट वाला ना. I'll say, कैसन होला? Then they will say, वो छोट छोट वाला ना ये चीनिया Chineseation. Indian people have the idea that Nepali means Mongol face. The face of Gurung, Magar or Rai, Limbu, Chinky, Tamang, Chinky eyes, nose without the breeze, no breeze. Tamangs have no breeze. Brahmins have big breeze. And tip only nose and only 3-4 hair here as a beard and nothing. That identity. Right? And they will say, "Tu Nepali nahi kha." I will say, "हाँ Nepali bani." They will say, "झूठ बोला तो बाड़ा, कैसे नेपाली हो जाइबा? तू लौकता नहीं खा नेपाली." I'm using these multiple languages to make you feel my multiple identity. Move ahead. Now, 70s, section 1, 80s, section 2, now 90s, section 3. One good thing about the structure of this essay is you can learn writing also. You can structure an essay with these asterisks. She is hinting that now she is describing another time. It was the late 1990s in Seattle and I was at the end of my 20s. Having spent the better part of the decade in Nepal. Okay, she spent this decade in Nepal. Battling I felt like for some personal freedom. She says, when I came to Nepal, I didn't enjoy freedom. I had more or less gained freedom. I had worked in and outside of Kathmandu. I had found my calling. What does it mean? To find your calling. If you say, I have found my calling, you mean you have found what you really enjoy in life. See this English language. If you say, I have really found my calling, you mean you have found what you really enjoy in life. I found my calling in 1987. And my principal one day said, if you don't understand anything, explain it to somebody. If you can make them understand, you will understand. Then I found my calling that I should be a teacher. I became a teacher. I became a teacher because I knew I should be a teacher. I found my calling. So ask yourself, I'm asking you, have you found your calling by now? If you haven't found your calling yet, it's a sad thing because your life will be misguided now. You're 19, 18, by now you must find your calling. You should know which way I'm heading in life. By now, your life must have a clear direction. You should know what you will be in after 5 years. If you don't know, it's a sad thing. Right? Okay, I stop here. It's 5-minute time. I'll give you time. Take a pen and copy. And as fast as possible, jot down the main ideas from today's class based on a memory. For 5 minutes, write as fast as possible. Jot down the main ideas from today's class. And tomorrow, you will correctly remind me where I have left. Thank you. Keep writing. Keep writing. Keep writing. Keep writing. Write as fast as possible, as much as possible. No worries about grammar, punctuation, nothing. Just collect as many ideas from today's class as possible.